High Level is a full CRM and marketing platform, and I've used some of the best in the SaaS industry. And we are live from LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, X. We've got Twitch going. Oh, shoot. Instagram's API is yelling at me. We are live there now, too. But it's Revening's Wednesday. Welcome to Wednesday, Revenue Party people. We've got our hot topics and our hot guests we're going to introduce you to, who I'm going to be meeting one of them here for the first time since we didn't see him on pre-show. So Ian's backstage. Ian, thank you so much for being here. We're going to bring you on here in just a moment. StreamYard apparently has these settings. I don't know if it's new or not, but it's not the first time it's been happening. But they want people to join with Facebook or YouTube, but apparently if I uncheck a certain box in the setting, they don't have to authenticate that way. Anyway, there's 17 of you here on YouTube. So if you're here, let us know by leaving a comment. We're using StreamYard right now to go live. So I would really suggest it because we're able to be super creative in here. We can upload video. We can have multiple people come in. Now, thankfully, we don't have to have people on Facebook or YouTube to get in here. But yeah, it's great to have everyone here. Let us know, where are you tuning in from? Obviously, I'm not in my regular studio. I'm visiting my parents in Moline, Illinois. So I am here in Moline, Illinois. But doesn't matter. You can go live anywhere you have the internet. And tonight we've got Ian and Taryn on, who I'm going to be introducing you to here in just a moment. But before we do, of course, I want to just remind you all of StreamYard. We're doing this on StreamYard. And as Reventing, of course, we help businesses go live on LinkedIn and YouTube, and that's what we do. But you don't need a service provider. You can do it yourself. Just use StreamYard. If you're on podcasts, only listening to this on audio, feel free to email our team, and we would love to help you get started on StreamYard if you use our affiliate link. Otherwise, if you get started using this QR code, it's my affiliate link. Feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help make sure that you're successful. But it's so cool because I'm starting to see people from 300 episodes ago downloading StreamYard. So that's why I'm talking about it again, because apparently people out there listening to the show like to hear about it. And I think we're becoming known as the live streaming experts on LinkedIn. So yeah, StreamYard, it's a preferred LinkedIn vendor. So they have LinkedIn, or they have StreamYard and Restream. So I really love Riverside. Great for podcasts, not so great for a LinkedIn Live. And they have a list of a bunch of others, but they're like, 4 figures or more. They're much more pricey. So these ones are much more budget friendly. But hey, Fishing Daily. Hey, Lakeisha Moore. Everyone, thank you for joining. Please let us know where you're tuning in from. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and bring on our guests. Welcome to the show, Taryn and Ian. Ian, thank you so much for joining. I'm going to get that StreamYard logo off your head here, because I know we were having some issues pre-show with that, Ian. I don't know if you saw that on screen, but it was,
yeah. Yep.
yeah, looking up. But anyway, thank you for being here. In good old-fashioned Wednesday style, what we like to do is put a 2-minute clock up on the screen and ask you both to tell us your full life story from birth to what brought you to now. And, we can go read your LinkedIn resume. So ideally, it's not just a rip-off of what your resume is. And everyone, let's tag them in the comments. Go look at their LinkedIn. We don't need to hear that. You obviously know they're experts if they're here on Wednesday. They have hot takes on sales and marketing. But we want to know what makes you human. So, Taryn, could you kick us off and tell us your full life story from birth to what brought you to now?
Yeah. So I was going to say probably for me, it's been a lifelong creative. So I was, as a kid, fascinated by art and design and drawing and just any kind of creative arts. And when you're going through, so I'm a Gen X person. So like, we had to do the whole, what's your preferred profession and do all that research in high school. And I was lucky enough to do what I've been doing since I was like 5, doing it, and being like getting a degree in it, working in it for over 10 years, and then transitioning eventually into marketing. But for me, it's like creative has always been like a guideline throughout my life. So like just ways of just representing and communicating and designing and creating space or creating, art or communications or whatever it is. It's just something that's always stayed with me. So I know, look, oh my God, I did that really, really fast. Then I'm gonna have to like mention maybe, I don't know, that a really funny connect for my event marketing piece. So we'll talk more about that in a bit, but I actually went through college and high school in kitchens. So I learned how to cook, did it professionally, ran my first kitchen at 22. And as I'm doing all my events where there's a culinary component to it, I actually can tap into all that background and all that history from like running kitchens and running dinner service, and use that for my event marketing piece. So not having any event marketing experience, I have culinary and preparing food for events. So that's my weird connect and end to event marketing.
I love that. Can't wait to get into it. And amazing when you can get your elevator pitch in under 2 minutes. And really, it's not your elevator pitch, it's your full life story. But thank you for that. Ian, I'm going to pass it over to you and reset the clock here. Could you fill us in a little bit and our audience on who you are and what makes you human, where you were born, and what brought you to now?
All right. Well, everyone, I'm Ian. I'm a lifelong resident of Michigan. I live right here, and the fact that I use my hand for geography means that you know I'm legit. And I've been around the professional IT space for as long as I've been a functioning adult. I was a screw off in high school, and because of that, I went to a local community college. I worked at that college during the day so that I could afford some credit hours at night. Ran through undergrad with a business degree and a minor in information technology, and started up an IT company while I was there. Got 2 great pieces of advice when I started my first business, which was keep it around because you can always write things off as a tax structure. And the second one was it only takes one customer till you never work for someone else again in your life. And that held true. Went from a little thing out of the trunk of a car in a basement of a townhome to a multi-million-dollar local, state, and nationally recognized leader in the field. Sold that business in 2021, helped my wife sell her call center in 2022, and leaned into helping solve sales challenges. Sales is a really big passion of mine these days, and I've gone the journey from hating sales to kind of liking sales, and now I've got a completely unhealthy relationship with how much I'm into this stuff. And I guarantee you, to everyone who's tuned in, you name a sales mistake, I've made it at least twice. So happy to be here.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, we've got an expert marketer and expert seller here today. So let's get into these hot topics. You can turn off this clock here. You both went under 2 minutes. So also, by the way, AP, I saw you were in the comments. There's many others of you in the comments. We want to hear from you. So this conversation is just as much about you as it is about us. So join us, write your questions, write your comments. We want to hear your perspective. Are we wrong? Are we right? Debate us. Let's get into it. Our first topic is event marketing for brands. And I'm all about it, in person, digital. We do digital here at Reveting. We have one retreat a year, but other than that, kick us off, Taryn. Could you set the stage for event marketing tonight?
Yeah, for sure. So like for me, so my marketing career spans and design career spans about 30 years, right? So like, I think the start of the second term of Bill Clinton. So way back in the day, but I had never done event marketing. So I've been on both the B2B and B2C sides and agency and brand side. So like I've been throughout the career up and down and in and out of everywhere. I took an opportunity in Santa Clara in California that had an event marketing component. And I was very upfront with the HR person. I was like, listen, like this is all the stuff I've done, but I've never done events. and they were looking to start up live events. This was 2022, so like it was when COVID restrictions were less, and they had a community event, and they, like, right before I hired in, they they actually, I'm sorry, I was looking at AP's comment. I'll get to that in a bit. But on the event side, like they had an event beginning, like the start of my tenure here, and they wanted to do more, right? So like they wanted to kind of create an event practice, tap into the Bay Area communities, right? And really help, pull it together and just like, do kind of soup the nuts. So like, as anybody who does event marketing knows, there are about 10 different jobs at any given event, right? So for me, I started with just me. So I'm working like 5 or 6 different jobs, from the strategy, the planning, the recruitment, the attendees, and just started running and going to ground. So in that first year, I think I ended up doing like 5 or 6 events. Over the span of the time I've been here, I've got 40 plus events, and out of those events, I've generated pretty close to 3 million in revenue. So the question for people might be like, how do you get 3 million in revenue? Is it ticket sales? Is it sponsors? Like any of that. I feel like when you're dealing with B2B communities, right, and you're working, so my events span from a couple different types of events, so it's like a GTM networking event. So creating a safe space for CEOs and C-suiters to actually talk about their challenges and their problems, no cell environment, right? Just creating a really great afternoon at a private residence somewhere in the Bay Area, and having the bespoke cocktails, and for some of our events, 2 5-foot pans of paella. So, but creating that space that allows them to meet people, to meet potential, products or services that they're buying, to grab a board member, to find somebody who can invest in their company, right? So creating that safe space there and that kind of event. We do community events at the CEO's house, right? And those are just fun events, just creating this experience where people have a little bit of FOMO. So I think my most famous FOMO generator was an Argentinian grill paired with a technology-driven whiskey company and doing a tasting live around a fire pit. So like that's kind of how I started my first year of doing events there.
That's amazing. Yeah, David says 40 plus events and 3 million in revenue. Wow, that is pretty incredible. Also, just for the record, this show, when it first started about, I don't know, almost 400 episodes ago, it was Whiskey Wednesday. I was a full-time CMO at the time, and in the evenings I would go live on Wednesdays and call it Whiskey Wednesday, and basically just, complain about cold outbound and sales like tactics. At the time I was super frustrated. And I was like, I can't get this company to go live on LinkedIn. I can't understand why. Finally, they still have been going live on LinkedIn. Proud to say my former employer is still my client. But yeah, it was so fun, a lot to manage. And the whiskey thing is just so fun, but we just don't have that anymore. But I am drinking wine tonight. Curious what anyone in the audience, what are you all drinking tonight? What are you doing? We did get some good questions. One was very broad, the AP one. And I wanted to, I didn't want to interrupt you when you were talking, but what did he ask? He asked something about how do we succeed?
Marketing in the age of AI.
Yeah, and I want to go live, be a real human being live on LinkedIn. Here we are having a conversation with that AI can't recreate this. Their deep fakes aren't good enough just yet. But yeah, in-person, events are big these days too. And I think that, is how to do good marketing in the age of AI, is having these events, these moments where humans can come together, they can, have a conversation, they can disagree, they can make mistakes, they can, stumble upon their words, but get to know each other. And I think for me, that's what events do. But real quick, Ian, I know you're our seller here and you're going to be kicking us off on selling topics, but what's your take on event marketing?
Yeah. I mean, we do a lot of events. The IT channel's kind of full of them. There's almost a trend to having too many events. If you tried to go to all of them, you'd never be at home. A few best practices that work really, really well stand out. And this could, whatever that personal brand is, go ahead and lean into it. So when we're in events, I'm in extremely loud clothing. We're highly visible. Carrie and I, Carrie's my wife and business partner. We're both rabid and avid cigar smokers, so we're walking around with boxes of cigars, handing them out. If you're doing a booth, make sure your booth stands out, and it doesn't have to be an astronomical booth cost. You could throw down a strip of carpet and some plants, do some sort of funny marketing, something that feels a bit different. Go up and introduce yourself to strangers, and we're talking a lot about LinkedIn here. A lot of times people will advertise that they're going to a show or about to attend a show, they're at a show. Use that and try to pre-book your calendar. So use the downtime between sessions if you're there as a sponsor or whatever to do one-on-one meetings. And most importantly, when you're having a conversation, book the follow-up before you leave. Don't leave with the business card. Don't leave with a badge scan. Book the demo, book the call, book the appointment right on the show floor.
Yeah, that's good advice.
That is good advice. Yeah, we do these events for a reason, and booking those
Yeah.
calls right then and there is really good take.
Yeah, my thing is, if you come from an event and you're working it, so like, the event to me showcases whoever you're doing it for. So for me, it was Position Squared, right? So showcasing how these guys think, what they do, like what their values are. People buy from people ultimately, right? They don't buy from like badly written AI generated BD emails. They buy from like that connection, right? And through content, through the events. So like for me, I try to showcase those guys as much as I can, so people have a good idea on like what they do, how they think, how they approach the work, right? How they understand pain points, and even from the values and ethics standpoint. But to Ian's point, it's important to walk out of an event with something scheduled, right? Like getting that lunch scheduled, getting that demo scheduled, whatever it is. You walk out of an event with 20 LinkedIn contacts, that's nothing, right? Like you need something that's actionable.
Yes. Actionable data. So before we transition this topic, we got some really good actionable data that like if and when you're in these events, digital or in person, make sure you're booking that call before you leave.
Mm-hmm.
Taryn, what's another piece of actionable advice you'd give people?
I'd say really put some effort into finding like the right audience, right? So like we just did a growth marketing summit in Utah. So, we had a really great guest recruitment strategy. We had a lot of research, months of research on the topics that are important to marketing leaders and CMOs, right? So like every aspect of this event is curated. It's like I said, it's bespoke. We created an experience that people feel, it's 25 strangers, like CEOs and CMOs, feel completely comfortable, like it's a ski weekend with the bros, right? Like that takes a lot of work on the back end to do that, but be intentional on who you're inviting, who you're focused on, what your messaging is, what your content is, right? And really target it for them, because you want to land and connect with that. And I feel like if it's not synced up, if you're not kind of talking to the right people, no matter how good the event is, it's not going to have the results that you need.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Well, thank you for kicking us off and talking us through our first topic, event marketing for brands. Let's move on now to cold outbound. As I admitted earlier, I used to complain a lot about cold outbound, but it is necessary, especially if you have to scale. And us marketers, we like to cut down cold outbound a lot. But when we think about it as like another touch point, right? It takes 30, 40 touch points. So think of a cold call as like, a calling advertisement, essentially, then it kind of helps get past the whole like cold outbound. Plus there are people who do it well. And it sounds like you and your partner, Ian, even she had a call center. Were they making sales calls in the call center?
Oh yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
yes.
through cold calling, booking FTAs through cold calling.
I love it. So can you kick us off on cold outbound and how to qualify leads on the first call?
Yeah. So first and foremost, if anyone who's in the sales game who's watching this, if you take nothing else from this, let nobody take the phone out of your hands unless it's from your cold dead fingers. That is that is 100% a sales truth. And IT services where Carrie and I play is a complex relational sale. So there's some differences between product, B2C, etc. But in a B2B relationship sale, you can use your first outreach, that first touch point, the first connection when you talk to a human, to qualify the things that a database won't have. So you download this leads list from Apollo, Zoom Info, wherever you might get your data from. It's going to tell you a lot of stuff. What's the industry, all those little data points, but it won't tell them the relationship status with regards to your service. So if you're running an agency, how do they do marketing? Who's their marketing company? How long's it been that way? How healthy is it? Same thing with IT, same thing with legal or any sort of relational aspect. Probably not legal because anti-solicitation, but you get the talk track that I'm on here. There's no database that tells you how is someone consuming the service that I want to sell to them. How do they feel about it? What's the psychographic profile around that? And the person who's always going to have that information in a company is the receptionist. 9 times out of 10, the person who answers that phone will have that sort of information. And so if you're cold outbound a qualification script, you want to ask a question that's generally designed to get an objection, and you're using objection handling to mine them for data. When someone gives you the no, they push back with an objection. You handle that objection, you reframe it, ask 3 to 5 really great questions to get all the information. Once that lead's qualified, then you start to do the multi-mode touch to get to the decision maker. But way too often, especially in small business sales, we're seeing people who are chasing after unqualified leads, burning cycle after cycle after cycle. That's time you can't get back, and you could have found that out with a simple phone call to the receptionist.
That's a good
I
point.
really like that approach.
Yeah, it's like we mentioned some data stuff. That call center, we did 10 years of outbound, over 5 million outbound dials, leading to thousands of appointments and 100 million in annual recurring revenue sourcing. This works. So like it's all about figuring out what are the questions that I really need to know this is an ICP fit, that ideal customer. How could I ask them? And then asking those questions in a way that the receptionist will engage. And it doesn't matter if that receptionist hangs up kind of midstream. If you get like the 2 or 3 most important ones, you got them. Then do whatever it takes to get the appointment with the decision maker. Send them a LinkedIn, shoot them an email, shock and awe box. I don't know, like wait outside their house with a sign on the side of your car. I don't care, whatever it takes to get their attention. But now you know they're worth the shot.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of felt like when I saw the topic you were going to speak on, I was super curious because I'm like, I want to really hear this because for me, like that whole cold calling, I don't think I answer my phone maybe very infrequently. So like, it's
Mm-hmm.
pretty much like I use it for computing and just web and social and stuff like that. I don't take calls, especially from numbers I don't know. So I was super intrigued by like what you were talking about. And I want to know how you broke through. And I think that makes a lot of sense, right? You just find that like kind of you grab the kind of the lower basic rung of the company who knows a lot of stuff and who could connect you to the right kind of folks. Like that makes like like I love that approach. It's very targeted and focused and intentional. And I think like that's why it works, right?
It is, and when you get that data, it's not like that data expires super quickly. So you've learned about how someone's, solving the problem that you solve today. Well, that's durable data. You track in your CRM, wherever you're keeping track of this stuff, and you can use that in the approach. So everybody's got the pitch that they might do to a decision maker, right? I'm talk with a lot of people about X and they're frustrated about Y and they don't know if it's cause one, cause two, whatever your formula might be. You're making that pitch. It's so much more powerful versus me saying, "Hey, I talk with a lot of folks who are frustrated by their IT guys. You know, how are you managing IT? Hey, I talked with Mary on your team, and she told me that this happened and that it impacted her day this way. I'm curious who else in your company is experiencing this." Like one is generic, one is customized. You can take all of that information you learn and use it as a weapon when you're really approaching the decision maker. It shows deep levels of research versus, hey, read your website and saw that you did this, right? Everybody's gotten that generic outbound, that unpersonalized AI slop where, it comes in and it's not really research. This is human validated research, and it's so simple to stand head and shoulders above everyone else who's trying to reach out to someone.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like human intel. Yeah.
That's right.
That's right. And yeah, to your point, like you just can't scrape that off the web. So like that's something, especially if you get somebody who has a grievance or something like that, but that human intel is super important. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Yeah, and in the chat, everyone's saying, just don't go cold door knocking. Don't show up at my house. And also another thing that's not out of style is showing up to the office with snacks or donuts.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I know that's a little off topic. In terms of the cold calling part though, I like your strategy. Is this one of the particular like sales techniques that fall under any school of thought, or is this like your guys' own technique?
Yeah, this is what we teach. We teach our customers when we're working with someone and installing a sales system. But it transfers again in a business to business services sale, a relationship sale. This transfers. And generally when you're doing those sorts of sales, you're calling a company's office because they still have to answer that phone. So it breaks down on cell phones, right? You wouldn't be calling a gatekeeper on their cell phone. It breaks down kind of on B2C. That's not really where it's at. So this is really a B2B tactic, which is where we play. But if you're calling a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant, even a manufacturer, they're still answering their phone because their customers call that line to get service or place an order. So anywhere where someone's still tied to an office line, you're going to be able to get a receptionist. You can make this play.
Brilliant. I love it. So good. Would love to hear. Are there any questions from the audience on this? Is anyone calling into receptionists? That's an interesting take. But any more on cold outbound, how to qualify leads on the first call, Ian, before we transition?
Um, yeah, the other thing really to keep in mind, I guess, is always iterate. So what was working today might not work 6 months from now or a year from now. So figure out how to iterate. And the number one, like the number one skill that's required for this qualification is objection handling. I'd challenge everyone to just remember the acronym ASK. Acknowledge objections, state something relevant, and keep the conversation going with a what or how question, that open-ended question that leads to discovery. But when someone objects, you have to acknowledge it, and it can be as simple as fair point. But you got to hear them. They have to feel heard. You state something relevant, which gives you the space to then feed in another question. And after your opener, like the what or how is really, really important. What or how questions generally are questions that let someone help you. It's hard to get offended when a person's asking you for help. Who, where, when seem personal, they seem private. And why is a defensive trigger question? It's always going to trigger defensiveness because you're asking someone to justify their thought process. People really don't get ticked off about what or how.
What or how? That's
What or how.
really good advice, actually. We did get one final question on the outbound topic of how do we set up cold outbound for a brand new B2B organization validating product market fit?
Yeah. So product market fit's totally different area of the sales cycle, right? You're getting brand new intelligence. This is one of those areas where reaching out and saying, "Hey, I've got kind of a weird question, that gatekeeper. We're trying to find out about this. Could we interview the CEO?" So phrasing it as an interview and leaning into that. Not here to try to sell you anything. We're trying to validate market fit. You fit the ICP. Could I ask you some questions and, do X for time, right? So you can offer a donation to a charity, something like that sometimes applies, or just can we have 5 minutes of your time to do this? If you don't want to do the direct survey realm, start a podcast about the topic. Everybody starts podcasts. Just start a podcast. You're calling to interview them on the podcast. Find a way to stitch in your questions about product market fit there. It's a red herring podcast. You can shut it down after you get the intelligence you need.
A red herring podcast? That's what you
Yeah,
call
you don't care. You don't care about subscribers. You're not trying to monetize it. You don't care about the backlinks. I mean, sure, you can use it for backlink farming or whatever, right? But you buy a $12 Buzzsprout subscription or whatever, and you spin up the podcast. You have 5 or 10 of your friends come on and do some seed episodes for it, and then you just interview people. You can get all the market intelligence you want, just brand it as a podcast.
Yes, I definitely have seen that. Start a podcast with Reveting, David mentioned, and it's a great point. I'd be a liar if I didn't say that actually our clients who we help go live on LinkedIn, we help them get guests like this. The ones who really monetize it are the ones who they don't sell before the show, but they'll build a relationship and they will fill it out and they, book a call post show if it makes sense. And is what's happening. I mean, there are sales that can come from the audience, but for the most part, like we do, even as an agency, try really hard to align guests that they could potentially sell to, because you're absolutely right. Like, I don't think you should make it the goal, because I think people can feel if it's like it's sales focused. Like the goal really should be viewership and impressions, and let's work together to help each other reach each other's audience. But hey, you're meeting people and that's sales, and it happens. And as a marketer at first, I was a little appalled by it. I'll be honest, like, you sold to the guests, like, ew. But then it just, I was like, no, why you? It's okay. And that's actually what's supposed to happen. So yeah, great point, Ian. I'm glad that you brought that up.
We actually use that on the podcast that I market. So not to directly sell into people, but creating hero moments for people. So like helping, and it kind of translates into GEO, the next topic, but it's like creating a hero moment, creating assets for them to be able to share on social media and all of that. So like speaking engagements and podcasts are a great way to nurture people, right? To kind of do things for them. So it's kind of like a freebie that you can give people that, maybe down the line, you can come with a different upsell approach or a new sale, right? But like not direct selling, but using it as creating just really good goodwill with people.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, our next topic is GEO, as you were saying. And before we get into that, we're going to have a brief message from Cherry Assistant and Reveting. We'll be right back after this.
This is Mike, also known as Clean with Mike on Twitter. Mike hired a virtual assistant from Cherry Assistant about 2 years ago. Now he has a $50K per month business, fully managed by a remote operator in South Africa. His VA from South Africa does the following: closing inbound leads on the phone, Yelp and Google and Facebook, manages his CRM on Go High Level, deals with rescheduling, cancellations, any issues, hires and manages the cleaners, and sends them daily reports and updates. Mike has a fully cash flowing business managed by a remote operator for only $8 an hour. You can also hire a US equivalent worker in the Philippines, South Africa, Latin America for a fraction of the cost with Cherry Assistant. Be like Mike and grow your business with offshore staff.
And if you're listening to this on podcast, we're showing a menu of services they offer, including but not limited to lead generation, CRM management, prospecting assistance, sales presentation preparation, data entry, and so many more. If you're interested, go to cherryassistant.com. Make sure you let them know you heard about them through WinsDay for $250 off your first month. And we've got one more video. We'll be right back after. At Reveting, we help B2B founders, executives, brands turn their live streaming into a real revenue channel. One live stream turns into a podcast. It turns into a social clip. It turns into email content like a newsletter and actual sales conversations. You get to have a lot of conversations with people when you have a podcast or a live stream like this. And if you want to be known, trusted, and remembered in your industry without being online 24/7, worrying about your posting, this is what we do. Just head on over to revetting.com and let's build your show.
I want to give a quick testimonial for the Revetting team. I was really nervous about doing lives. They very much have helped me increase my reach and online presence. So thank you, Revetting.
I love what you and the team do. I've been picking up 50 followers a day just because that content is resonating so well. It's working across a lot of different channels for me.
One of the problems that we struggle with is getting our brand out there. Her team have been able to do for us is the idea of going live on LinkedIn and using that platform to its fullest extent through the way they're able to take the live event and break it down into bite-sized posts, video clips, as well as the content within the posts themselves.
Awesome. Okay. AEO and GEO, or GEO. I mean, some call it AI, SEO, GEO. There's AEO. There's all these different things. And I learned this week that some people say there's different, each of them mean a different thing. And I'm like, well, I thought it was all the same thing. And then Google came out and said, it's still just SEO. So I'm like, well, who's right? But anyway, I'm excited to hear your take on it here, Taryn. Generative engine optimization for personal and professional brands. Can you kick us off?
Sure thing. Okay, so like I stumbled into it, really. So like for me, I've always had a very robust social profile, probably since 2013. So like I'm constantly reputation checking myself. So seeing like what there's any negative sentiment, any negative comments, anything that's going on, right? So like, I guess I might have a healthy dose of paranoia, or unhealthy, depending on your perspective. But I want to make sure I jump on narratives, right? So I was using Google and I saw that they're kind of like AEO, I guess it's maybe a precursor to AEO, but it was their AI mode, right? Where I could kind of like just ask it questions about me, see what's going on, see like, is some of my content hitting, various stuff like that. So I started going through and using AI mode and just like giving the thumbs up or the thumbs down on answers, fine tuning it, giving it feedback. And I didn't realize it, but I was kind of like building up what my presence would be in Gemini. So like AI mode translated into Gemini for myself. So while SEO, AEO, and GEO are three distinct things, and by the way, for anybody listening in marketing, SEO is still very relevant and people are succeeding with SEO. For me, GEO helps with just my presence. So like as a personal and professional brand, like, so I'm a seasoned marketer of 20 plus years and a marketing leader and strategic operator. I want to be represented in the LLMs the right way. I also do a lot of podcasts talking about my lived experience. I want that represented the right way. So I put a lot of effort in curating that, finding the right media opportunities and building that up. I think I'm on my, probably my third iteration of thought leadership in my career, where I'm just kind of like building out how I speak, what I speak, the spicy hot takes that I do. On LinkedIn, you'll know me as the Trans Menace. You'll know me as your third favorite marketer, but number one in your hearts. Like that's the kind of spicy hot take that I offer people. And that is, after that work in 2025, my GEO in Gemini, in Claude, and in GPT is all very consistent. And for me, it just shows like everything that I've done up until that point. So like I'd say in the last 5 years, being published in NASDAQ, right? Getting published in Bold Journey and Canvas Rebel, having a feature in Authority Magazine for, 5 tips on how to become a thought leader, right? Like all of these things are represented within there. And for me, as I'm developing content for social and just for like blogs and articles, I have a Medium and a Substack. I do a lot of deep research in Gemini, and training that system allows Gemini to talk to me like it knows me enough to be able to, use language that is, familiar for marketing leaders, right? Like it talks to me like it knows that I'm a marketing leader. I was telling Jessie before this that I had done my GEO and Gemini was so good that I actually had it. I asked it, and this was inspired by somebody posting an AI generated memorial post for somebody who passed away. And I was like, I saw that and was like, how good is my GEO? Let me see if Gemini can do a eulogy for me that kind of captures every aspect of who I am. And it totally did. So it's a culmination. And I've written about it on Medium, and it's on, I think, my Authority magazine's on my Medium as well. So if you want more details on how to structure that, how to focus on building your GEO up to where it represents you accurately. And believe it or not, there are people that have like one sentence in Gemini, right? And they might be relatively like people with high exposure in prominent jobs, with, you know, whatever roles they're in, right? But it's like, and they've got one sentence. My thing is more like a page and a half. So like I've trained it to the point to where if somebody checks in on me and wants to know if I'm a speaker and where I speak and what I do and what I say and like what I talk about, these LLMs will be able to instruct them, and then they can reach out to me via email, via my website, you know, via the public platform.
Amazing. Well, thank you for sharing that. And before I share anything, Ian, I'm curious, what's your take on all this?
Yeah, it's it took me a long time to get comfortable with not knowing things, and these days I'm infinitely comfortable being the dumbest guy in a room. That's actually usually when I'm most effective, is when I'm in a room surrounded by people who are smarter than me about topics that we're talking about. And SEO, GEO, AIO, and most of the search engine optimization or results optimization strategies. While I know the 10,000 foot view, I'm not a mechanic there. And thankfully, I've got a infinitely talented and beautiful business partner who is an expert at those, who manages that for us. So, from a strategist point of view, incredibly, incredibly important. It's not something you can ignore. It's something that needs time, effort, and money. And you have to build out a strategy. You have to build that up, because that's the only way to be able to get the inbound funnel coming, right? Your sales effort can go ahead and do outbound from good sales success. You can be harvesting referrals. But if you want to start having an inbound stream, that content strategy is critical. And the only way people are going to put their eyes on it is if you're leaning into the optimization strategy. So that's what I got.
Sitting here talking on mute. But yeah, I loved Carrie's response. EIEIO, harvesting, I'm guessing it's like farmer.
Mhm.
Yep. And you're nodding too, Taryn. What were you going to say something?
Well, no, I just appreciated Ian's, like, you know, candor, right? Just like
Yeah.
there and talking about it in very, you know, very basic terms. Loved it. Thank you. But yeah, I mean, for me, I'm just looking at making sure that I'm represented, that when people are searching me and looking for those opportunities, like they know who I am, right? They get a good picture of that. And I think for me, the one piece with I think with GEO, at least in my experience, I'm going to just speak personally, right? But I feel like becoming a thought leader is critical before kind of even diving in and optimizing answers, and, you know, the answer engine optimization or the generative engine optimization, like defining your lanes, right? Being known for something, and not just like being the person who drops in and drops a comment here or a comment there on social media, but has actually a unique, valuable take, right? And there's some mechanics in GEO that are really important as well. Leaning into optimization strategy, right? Yeah. So, but, you know, having that spicy hot take is really helpful, right? Machines want to know more. They want to gain, those LLMs want to gain more knowledge, right? So the more unique piece that you can talk about, your perspective, your background, your experience, you know, building that authentic kind of like, I don't know, digital neighborhood in a way, that all drives your GEO. But like for me, I feel like that thought leadership piece is a critical piece to kind of defining that. Like I know prominent people that have one sentence, but they don't have that thought leadership aspect where you don't see them online weighing in on something or giving that spicy hot take or their perspective. So there's nothing for the sites to pick up. There's nothing for to be added to the data, right? To be able to decision that.
Yeah, nothing to be added. Oh, that's such a great point, and this is such a great topic. Would love to hear from anyone else in the audience if they have any thoughts on this. Otherwise, it's 10:10 and we still got to get to one more topic. So I'm going to transition us now into planning the transition from founder-led sales. Oh, I am a founder, and it's so true. Founder-led sales lasts way longer than you would hope it to. But yeah, how do we plan that transition finally, Ian?
Yeah. So this is a struggle. Anytime that you're shifting from that startup mode into second stage, this is that hurdle. And there's a guy who's pretty famous in our industry, Arlen Sorensen, who does a lot about life planning. And the dirty little secret about running a business that not a lot of people talk about, but we all intrinsically know, is that everybody will exit from their business. And you, most of the time, but not always, get to choose whether you exit horizontally or vertically. So you either carried out or you walked out. If you're going to walk out of that business, transitioning sales so that it's not dependent on the person, it's not a cult of personality sales system, is what's going to unlock higher multiples at exit. So it's a critical thing to put in place. People need process to be able to sell, and that process has to be supported by coaching, by training, by enablement. So make sure you have the basics in place. Website matches the offer, the messaging on the website matches the messaging on the collateral. Have an idea of what your ICP is, and don't say it's 20 to 100 person businesses that use IT or whatever it is that you're selling. Really try to dig down into firmographic, geographic, psychographic profile areas. It's better to get to know fast when you're having someone else do the selling. You can't just hand someone the yellow pages in a phone and say, hey, get to it. I mean, you can, but you're not going to get as much of a hit rate. So knowing what it is, knowing what the objections are, having those skills that you can train into there, and then doing continual training. Professional sales is a lot like being an athlete. Game day is the discovery. When you're meeting with that customer, asking questions, really digging and finding the true value and aligning around that value and aligning around what the real problem is. Surrounding game day should be all the practice. So it shouldn't be episodic trainings and coaching once a quarter, once a year, whatever. It should be continual coaching and practice all the way up to game day, so that the time that you need to make the game-winning free throw, it's the 9,000th free throw you've done, not the third, so that you're going to make the basket when it counts. Reflection and coaching is another big thing that you want to put in place. You need to take all of that institutional knowledge that you have, why you lose deals, and document them down and figure out how to train that to someone else. And if you don't have that, bring in outside help. Bring in professionals to help you build it out. The last thing that I'll say here is that the most common mistake we see in founder-led sales transitions is someone hires the person to build the system, and then they're going to execute the system. And those are two different personalities. Great sales reps don't build great process. Great sales reps will demand good process. So if you're bringing in someone who says, oh yeah, I'll build it all and then I'll execute it or whatever, my guess is that you're bringing in a C average player and not a B or an A plus.
Yeah. How can you tell you're getting the C average player, not the B or the A plus?
You find in an interview. So commonly, I would recommend a multi-step sales process. Don't just take someone in for a sales hiring process. Don't just take someone in for an interview. Big fan of making a pre-hire assessment of 30 minutes to 45 minutes a requirement before they talk to a human. Because if you're not willing to invest a half hour or 40 minutes, you're not wired as a salesperson. If you're not willing to invest that with no chance of getting anything, that's not a salesperson. Do a 10-minute screener before you do an interview, because you can ask really pointed questions in a 10-minute screener, and I'd rather blow 10 minutes on a bad fit than an hour on a bad fit. And do your screeners first thing in the morning or right at the end of the day, so that you're getting someone like at 8 a.m. And if it sounds like they're waking up, they weren't prepared, right? Like,
Right.
do these sorts of things. There's all these little areas where if you think about what does this person look like? What is the characteristics that we need? What's the attitude, the mindset needed for this role? And then pressure test that all the way through. But your interview shouldn't be a walk of their resume. You can read their resume. You could look at that. You could call some references. You don't need to talk about their resume. What you need is to pressure test the skills that you know are critical for the job. And you need to do that in a real way, and kind of a bad cop way. So people, like, the one thing a sales rep should be good at is selling themselves. So if they're kind of fumbling in the interview, get out of there. Just cut it short and get out of there. But don't take things on face value. Do some scrimmaging. Really think this all the way through and pressure test someone. And you know, my old strategic coach told me a line that's always stuck with me: we deserve what we tolerate. So if you hire someone and you have multiple milestones over those first 90 days and they're failing to meet the milestones and you keep them, you deserve what you tolerate. Fire fast if someone's not performing. It's not kind to them or to the business to let them sit there and flounder. If they're not making it, get them out.
Yeah, that could be said, I feel like about any department, operations, sales, any of them. And it's easy to want to lean into the humanity side of things, especially as founders. You really want to believe in people. But, you know, I've learned that sometimes the best way to honor people is to really let them know and let them go faster, because you're doing them a favor, rather than, you know, going down to a bad place. But Jennifer's saying, good point. I know Sherry Prescott, thank you for being here. She said 9,000 free throw. Great analogy. Love that. And yeah, David's just super grateful for all the experiences and people sharing this. But that is the end of the episode. But before we wrap up, we want to hear a little bit more about both of you. So before we go, could you both share a little bit more about yourself, who it is you serve, how you serve them, and if they could be served by you, how do they reach you? Taryn, can you kick us off?
Yeah, so strategic operator focused on content. I like to say that I have about 12 jobs, right? So like I'm working in event marketing and content marketing and thought leadership in one perspective, working on marketing comms for another role. And I also ghostwrite for CEOs and for companies on LinkedIn. So if you're looking for somebody to do like literally authentic, solid content that converts, that drives engagement rates, increases following, and gets people interacting on the channel, please reach out to me. It's TarynTally.com. I'm on Substack and Medium. DM me on LinkedIn. I'm probably terminally on LinkedIn way too much than I should be. But focused on really helping companies in that Series B, Series A area where they might have budget, they've got product market fit, but they need to up level and they need somebody who doesn't require a lot of instructions. So like I'm a bit of a strategic operator and I can just drop in, help you work on a strategy, execute the strategy, and to get your marketing to where it needs to be.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. And of course, for being here. Ian, how about you? Could you share a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah. So Ian Richardson, I'm CEO and co-founder of Fox and Crow. It's foxcrowgroup.com. We're focused on the IT channel, the managed service provider channel. If you happen to run an MSP, you're looking to grow out of founder-led sales, or you have a sales team that's not performing, let's chat. We're a software company over here, and do quite a bit of services around there. So anyone who's looking to sell to or through the IT channel to reach their end users, that's a big area where we're at. And broader speaking, both my wife and I are strategic consultants focused on go-to-market. So if you're thinking about how to set up that sales team, go ahead and talk to us. Even if it's not something we would do, we're happy to point you in the right way.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you both for being here. Thank you to everyone in the audience for joining. And thanks for still listening in. I still see there's about 10 of you on LinkedIn and even more on some of the other channels. So plug in a goodbye if you're here. But yeah, we'll be back with another great episode of WinsDay next week. But Ian and Taryn, I'll see you back show right after this outro video. Until WinsDay, everyone, we'll see you next week.
Bye.